Hello, Bad Book Club friends, and welcome back to Bad Book Club, where I, Jade, of course, read classic and popular literature so you don't have to. Welcome to this week's episode. So I'm going to switch things up a little bit this week. I am so sorry. The last month I've sort of taken a little bit of a strange course with Bad Book Club, and that's because I recently got into a master's program for creative writing. I am now a member of Vermont College of Fine Arts MFA in writing fiction. That is me. I literally just started this month, and it's a low residency program. For people who don't know what that means, it means that essentially I am in Texas while this is in Vermont, and through a series of Zooms and lectures and all that jazz, I can do it from my home. It does mean, though, that a lot of my time was suddenly split with my MFA, and I was just scrambling to make sure that I could fit everything into my time frame. So that's why my schedule has been a little bit hectic this month, but it should be getting better. I'm getting back into a groove and I know what's going on. So because of that, though, this week, I wanted to have a little bit of a different episode. Normally I read a book and I tell you the summary and I tell you an analysis, but this time I'm just going to tell you some of the books that I've been recommended during my MFA program and maybe kind of pick your brains about that topic and give you some fun recommendations that are in the same theme of adventure, season 2, science fiction, and fantasy. Thank you so much. Let's just get started. So, like I said, started my MFA, and I have just gotten the most insane amount of recommended books to me, and in the course of my MFA, me and my advisor picked a book list of just a bunch of books for me to read during the semester, and they're catered to my own interests, and my own interests include a lot of speculative fiction, which is basically stuff like science fiction, fantasy, stuff that's like fun and kind of like otherworldly, stuff like that. That's called speculative. Horror, mystery, that's all speculative. So I just got recommended a ton of speculative fiction, and since we are on the science fiction and fantasy season, I thought I would just share to you what I've been told to read and give you my opinions of some of the ones that I just was told to read. These are not extremely popular because I have not heard of them. They're not classic. They're just new books that might be fun to read, and I'm not going to give you the summaries because these ones should be fun for you to check out on your own. So we're just going to go through some of them. And some of them, too, include craft books. What that means is if you're a writer, it's a book about how to write. So if you're also interested in writing, I'll include some craft books at the end. And I will just give my opinions about my MFA so far. And then next week, we'll be back to our regular scheduled programming. So in terms of books that I am reading for this semester and books that have been recommended to me, the first book that I've read, I just finished it yesterday, is this book called Akata Witch by Nnedi Okorafor. I think that's how you say her name. I honestly did not say it out loud till this moment here. But it's called Akata Witch, and it's based in Nigeria. And the story is all about this girl named Sunny Nwazu, and she's an albino. And she gets kind of dragged into this world that she didn't know existed, and it has everything to do with like juju and her friends, and they're very young, and she's an athlete, and it's all about like magic. And so as she figures out this brand new world, she is kind of forced into a situation with a very terrifying element in this book where there is a serial killer on the loose killing children in her town. So it is really interesting. It's very well written. I gobbled it up. I thought it was so fun. So 10 out of 10, I recommend it. Part of what I wanted from my advisor when I requested was I wanted books from different countries because my English major had a lot to do with American contemporary literature. I haven't read that much of other countries, so I requested a bunch of different other countries, so a lot of these are from different countries. So I believe Nnedi is from Nigeria, but she is a World Fantasy Award-winning author, and she's also a Hugo and a Nebula Award winner, I believe. And so it's very exciting. It's a series. This is just the first one, Akata Witch. So 10 out of 10, you guys. Try that one out. Next, that I was recommended, I have not read this one yet, but it looks really good. It's called The Famished Road by Ben Okri. It apparently is a perspective of like a little boy who's a spirit child called an Abiku, I believe, And it's in Nigeria. It is a stasis between life and death. And so it's about this little kid who's an abaku, and he foresees himself, and the tale he tells is full of sadness and tragedy. And he was born with a smile on his face. It's a very strange kind of mystical between the realm of life and death type of thing. And it's still, again, based in Nigeria. So that's a really fun one. I have not read it yet, but I've heard great things. And so that's why it's on my list. I picked it up at Half Price Books for like $3. So if you want to find a new book to read and you're looking for something good, this one is not too long, and I've heard awesome things about it. So, Ben Okri. Lastly, the book that I just started, these are all the books I'm reading this month, by the way. This is them. The book that I just started is by Haruki Murakami. I have never read a Murakami book. Murakami is a Japanese author. He's incredibly famous. I've heard his name before, but I did not realize how famous he was. He's written just an insane amount of novels, and his books are just so acclaimed and beloved. And this is a very popular novel of his. It's a little long, but that's kind of why I chose it. I don't know about you guys, but I have a love for extremely long books because I love that they never end. I love that. I feel like you have to be also a good author to write a long book. I'm hardly ever disappointed by long books, except if you're Stephen King and you wrote It. I really did not like It. But every other book I've read in my life that's long is usually very good. So I love long books. I'm attracted to long books. This book has over 600 pages. I saw it on the shelves, and it has this beautiful, brightly colored cover and this really interesting title. It's called The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle. And I thought that was so interesting, so I just had to get it. It's about a man and his wife in a Tokyo suburb. A man named Toru Okada searches for his wife's missing cat in like his little city and area, and he searches bizarre like areas in his home area. I'm saying the word area a lot. He searches through like the back alley of his house and like vacant homes near him. He's just searching through the city, and he encounters all these strange people and events, and it's like a detective story almost. And it's also about his marriage with his wife, and about the buried secrets from Japan's forgotten campaign in Manchuria during World War II. So it is a lot going on. I had a professor back in the day say that books, when there's a lot of stuff going on in them, he used to say there's a lot on the table. So when you're looking at a book and a lot of stuff is going on, you can imagine that the author has kind of set things on this table for you. And while they seem unrelated, they're all on the table, they're all in the story. So I thought that's a fun metaphor for you about how I felt reading this back cover of this book. It feels like there's a lot going on, and I'm wondering how it's all connected, and I feel like it's written very well. And I'm only about 80 pages in, but I'm really liking it so far. Most notably, in the first couple pages, what I thought was kind of interesting is the book starts with a man, what's his name? Toru. He gets a phone call, and he picks it up, and a woman says, "Do you have 10 minutes to get to know each other?" And he said, "I'm sorry, who is this?" And she says, "It doesn't matter who I am, but if you have 10 minutes, we can get to know each other." And he was like, I don't know what this is. I'm making spaghetti. And she's like, "Well, then fine, cook your spaghetti." And then she hangs up, and he has no idea who that was. And so there's just kind of strange stuff like that so far in this book, and it's very intriguing. I feel like we learn about our character in a very interesting way. So if you want to read from an acclaimed author, a Japanese author, I believe he's Japanese. Yes, I believe so. A Japanese author, Haruki Murakami, The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle. It's a longer one. You can also do a shorter one by him. Apparently all of his novels are very amazing, but I went for the long one first. So yeah, those are my 3 fiction books that I'm reading this month. I have Akata Witch down, and as I said, I'm starting in on Murakami. And craft book wise, I have some fun ones here. Oh wait, one more fiction book. I almost forgot my other fiction book. It was buried under my pile here. It's called Americana by I'm so sorry about this name. Chimamanda. My pronunciation is going to be terrible. Ngozi Adichie. I read a short story by Adichie a while back. It was called what was it called? I think it was like Cell Zero or Prisoner Cell Block Zero. It was something like that. I'm really sorry, Adichie. I'm forgetting the name of it. But it was a wonderful short story. It was very well written. I loved it so much that I asked my advisor if this could be placed on my list because she's an amazing fiction writer. And Americana is something I've been hearing just the best things about. Let's see. It is about two people called Ifemelu and Obinze. And they're young and in love when they depart military-ruled Nigeria for the West. And it's all about America and London and race and love and identity. And she's an award-winning writer, and she's very just so good. So this was also on my list, my requested reading. It was the only book I asked if I could add because I actually had it on my shelf and just haven't gotten around to listening to it yet because I'm a crazy person. So I asked if I could read it for this program, and my teacher was like, of course, she's amazing. So yes, those are all my fiction books that are recommended to me this month. As a reminder, it's Americana by Adichie, Famished Road by Ben Okri, The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle by Haruki Murakami, there we go, and Akata Witch by Nnedi Okorafor. They're all really interesting. Like I said, I asked for speculative fiction. Some of these are a sort of speculative fiction. Some of them are just fiction. But I enjoy a little bit of magicalness in the things that I read. And if you're looking to read something that is like just, very well written and acclaimed and also fun, I highly recommend these four. And now I can go to some craft books that I was recommended that I'm very excited to read. So I have an obsession with craft books. I love them. They're like lists. You guys know lists. Like how lists are just so helpful and nice. They make you feel organized. I love buying craft books. I feel like just buying a craft book makes me feel like I have, through osmosis, absorbed whatever this craft book was trying to tell me. And usually craft books are very helpful, and they are really interesting. And so I just got a new one called A Swim in a Pond in the Rain. And that one is really great. If you're into short stories, you might want to check that one out because he tells a short story for a page, and then the next page he tells you what happened on that page of the short story. And so he does that for a ton of stories. It's really interesting, and I'm halfway through that one. But these are some new craft books that I bought. I was very excited to buy some craft books. They were recommended, only one of these is actually for my MFA program, and two were recommended by classmates of mine who just said that they were good. And like I said, I love craft books, so I splurged and I got them. So the first one is called Bird by Anne Lamott, Some Instructions on Writing and Life. I have heard about this one for the longest time, and I just have not been able to read it yet. So apparently it's just the end-all be-all of like hilarious and helpful writing advice. So the iconic passage that gives the book its title is this. 30 years ago, my older brother, who was 10 years old at the time, was trying to get a report on birds written that he'd had 3 months to write, which was due the next day. We were out at our family cabin in Bolinas? Sorry. And he was at the kitchen table, close to tears, surrounded by binder, paper, and pencils and unopened books on birds, immobilized by the hugeness of the task ahead. Then my father sat down beside him, put his arm around my brother's shoulder, and said, "Bird by bird, buddy. Just take it bird by bird," which is pretty cute. So it's a 25th anniversary edition is the one that I have, and it's lauded as, hilarious and warm and wonderful by the LA Times, by the New York Times Book Review. So if you're looking for a fun and interesting book about how to write, if maybe during quarantine you took up a writing habit, which a lot of my friends have, give this one a shot. I've heard great things. The next one is very short. So if you're looking for a very short read, this one is called Steering the Craft, a 21st century guide to sailing the sea of story. I believe that this one's going to be more technical, more about like sentences, they're fundamental components of narrative is what it's called. So like the sound of language to sentence construction to point of view, all the stuff, all the ingredients of what makes a story. So if you want, more of a background on that, this is kind of a useful guide. Apparently it's very illustrative, which is a fun word, and uses lots of great examples. It's by Ursula Le Guin, I believe is how you say her name. My professor said that he knew her and that she had a very good book. So anyway, this is a really short one. This one you could read maybe in 30 minutes to an hour. It's pretty short. It's only a little bit over 100 words, so maybe a little bit longer than an hour. Couple hours, you'd be done with it. So that's a good one. And then the one that I'm most excited for is this one with this crazy cover. It's called Thrill Me, Essays on Fiction by Benjamin Percy. Thrill Me practices what it preaches. It's a craft book that is also a thrilling read, which is really interesting. It just sounds so cool. In 15 essays that challenge the notion that literary and genre fiction are mutually exclusive, Benjamin Percy turns to Cormac McCarthy, who wrote The Road, Ursula Le Guin, who just wrote the last book I recommended, Stephen King, and others to discover how contemporary writers engage plot, character, dialogue, and suspense. Suspense is important for me personally because I'm bad at suspense, so I'm really excited for this book personally. So it is an entertaining book, and it has lots of good anecdotes and advice, and its whole thing is how to thrill your reader. So maybe if you write, even just for fun, like maybe fan fiction or something, this could be a fun one to pick up. It has this crazy cover that is like a pixelated eye. It's by Benjamin Percy, so check it out. Those are all the books that I've bought for this month. I'm probably not going to get through all of them. I think I'm being a little bit ambitious. But those are all the books that I've invested in for this month and the month ahead. Overall, for my semester, my advisor and I picked close to 20 books to read. She told me to not buy too many at first, because if I read these ones and tell her what I thought about them, she might give me new, recommendations based on what I really liked and what I kind of didn't like. So, yeah, and that's what I've been up to, you guys. I wanted to hop on and apologize because I feel like Bad Book Club has been so hectic lately, and that's because my life has been hectic. But Bad Book Club is very important to me, and talking to you guys is very important to me, and reading books is really important to me. I'm just terrible at time management. I'm just kidding, but I'm figuring out my time management now that I just started my master's. So thank you so much for sticking with me, and next week we'll be back to our regularly scheduled programming. I'm going to read a book, but I'm not going to tell you what it is, and then we will talk about it together. We'll have our classic summary and analysis, and if you liked this episode where I gave you recommendations without spoiling the stories for you, let me know, and I can always do more of these and give you my recommendations, or books that I've purchased recently, because I have a terrible habit of just purchasing books because I like them, and then sitting them on my shelf and staring at them and wanting to read all of them all at one time, and I'm very bad at doing that, but it's very fun to purchase books, and I'm always making purchases. So if you're interested, go ahead and check it out. I would love to do more of these type of episodes, but leave me a review or go to Instagram at Bad Book Club Pod and send me a DM and say that you liked it. Also, speaking of Instagram, you can follow us on Instagram at Bad Book Club Pod for less than a cup of coffee a month, for the same price as rubber bands and for the same price as flip-flops. You can support Bad Book Club and also keep it going. It is created by me, myself, and I do all the reading and I do all of the analysis all by myself, all by my little lonesome. And any support is lovely, and I have a Patreon at Bad Book Club Pod. Thank you guys so much for listening to our short little episode this week, and I will see you next week for a full-length episode as promised. Goodbye, lovelies!